Welcome to the DEI Effect. It's your host, Travis Brown. I am back with Andrea Neely. She is the president and CEO of the Simon Youth Foundation. And so welcome to the DEI side of this. Question, you are the first and the only in this position. Like, what is that like for you?
I'm a change agent. That's what it's about. And it's also where we are now in this point in time in our society. You're seeing a lot more women of color who are in CEOs or executive suite positions. And what we've always known to be true is that we've always had to work 3 times as hard to get half of what we actually deserve. And so we're getting those opportunities to right the ship. It's still not completely right, but the opportunities are there. And so I was destined to be in this role, whether it was with Simon or someone else, because I'm committed and driven for success. And so I'm part of the answer of what's new.
So everybody's talking about DEI. To you, like, what's DEI mean to you?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity for me is, as a woman, it's multiple things. It's one, being a woman. It's one, having a different point of view and our perspective. It's one of color. It's one of experiences. And I think what you find that people of color have a different perspective of diversity, and it's not just black, white, woman. You're diverse in thinking perspectives because you've had to actually live through that. Equity is probably the one thing for me that is the biggest challenge of this new, everyone, we're going to have a, diversity equity officer. Okay, so you got the diversity and inclusion. Let's talk about the equity. And the equity is like actually putting your money where your mouth is and investing
Literally.
in it. Really, other than saying, it's equitable because you have the position. Equitable means everyone, it's equal. That's a challenge for many, but you've got to continue to stay persistent with keeping people honest about making equity important. And of course, inclusion, you kind of said this earlier. It's nice to be included, but I need to be included with my opinion. I don't want to, an inclusion, I don't want to be the token. Look, we have a person of color. We have a woman. We get 2 for, we got a woman and of color. Oh yeah, that's a twofer. Check. We check the box. But sometimes you say that's what you want, but what you get is not what you want. Be careful what you wish for.
And do you feel like, when you show up at the table and whether it's the boardroom or it's a meeting and as people are interacting with you, I had somebody else say this, and we were having this conversation going, have you felt like you can be yourself? Or is there I have to tone this down, I have to polish this, I have to work around that, or can you be you?
There's one thing walking into this position, in any position that I have, and I'm very clear. I don't code switch at all. Let me say that again. I don't code switch. The same person you see sitting here, you're going to see in the boardroom, the bathroom, the laundry room, picking up some chips in the restaurant. This is who I am. I'm not going to change who I am to make you feel comfortable about who you are not. And if you're uncomfortable with that, there's therapy for you, because I'm not going to change me, because I'm not going to take on your issues with me. And sometimes, it is what it is, but no, I don't change who I am. And I think people respect when you're authentic. People respect when they know who you are and not who you're trying to be for them. No, this is what you see is what you get. Some people like it, some people don't,
You've done a lot of work over history trying to create equity for, underserved youth, education. When you think about all those investments that not just you have made, but people like yourself have been making for years, are we starting to see the fruits of that yet? Is it showing up in the places we need it to show up yet?
It's showing up, but again, that equity. When you think about, is it equitable for those students and leaders and women to be in positions, of leadership? It's still not equal. And so, have we made progress? Absolutely. Are we growing to have a better voice? Absolutely. But we're now fighting, that's going to hit the Supreme Court. Affirmative action is going to be gone next. And so, my son is at Princeton because he is there not because he's playing sports, which that's the other stereotype. The only reason he's at Princeton is probably playing sports. No, very bright, but he wasn't able to get into that space unless others made it possible. Affirmative action was one of those things. Are we far enough that once affirmative action is off the table, will it remain to be fair and equitable of getting education for those that look like us? And the question is yet to be seen. It's not fair and equitable, and we shouldn't do away with it. And affirmative action is not just people of color, but women and those that are disadvantaged. And so, we're making progress, but we're also are taking some steps back.
I always ask this question. It's like, are we ever going to get to a point where we don't have to talk about affirmative action, DEI, because it's actually a part of the DNA, or is this always going to be a fight?
Systemic. That's all I have to say. Systemic. It is a system that is there, that is part of everybody's everyday life, and they don't even realize it's systemic. So will we always have to? Absolutely. Do we have to continue to fight? Absolutely. But some people, our country is browning. 2042, we're going to be a brown country. There lies what we're dealing with now. The hate crimes, not only against African Americans, but the Jewish community. People are uncomfortable, and they're no longer in control, and they're no longer the majority. Yes, we'll always have to fight because the majority will become the minority, and they will still try to control the majority, right?
I have so my oldest is at Purdue. She's a sophomore / junior at Purdue, and then I have a 9-year-old daughter. And so when I think about them being able to see women like yourself in CEO and executive positions, it's so powerful to have that visual representation. How are we doing from a female and a black female perspective at the executive level, being visible in positions like yours?
We're making strides. I mean, there's some amazing women, here in just in Indianapolis. I mean, we're in positions like Lily Endowment. That's significant. Jeanette Hill is the first woman of color that is the president of Lily Endowment. That's a national major foundation. So we're making strides. You've got people like Karen Stroud, who's executive vice president at One America. I can pull names. Christian Corbin, who's over Mays Chemical. That was Bill Mays' daughter, and Christian is doing an amazing job, and she's a president and CEO. So we exist. We're there. We have to show, the next generation there's opportunities, and we also have to pull and share and pull them with us too. So.
Well, I love you throwing out some of those names, and Kristen's coming on and as a friend, and Inez Evans, Indigo, and some of those names I didn't know. And I also think it's about us pulling together and making sure that we know that we exist. In fact, that's what this podcast is really about, is that I started meeting in so many black and brown executives, like just in meetings, and I'm like, didn't even know you existed, didn't even know you were there, you're out there. And I felt like there's a narrative like that we weren't out here doing and creating. So I'm glad to now have these connections and start to see, so that we can tell that story that we are out here and we are making differences. Our company launched in 2022, and we're going to double down in 23 at our campaign called Diverse and Talented, because we had to go through this whole process to prove that we're both diverse and talented. People don't have to select between the two of them if you want that. And so we have these strides that we know that we need to make. And so my final question for you all is this: what's the big wish? What's the big hope? What's the big ask that begins to make even a bigger shift? What does that look like from your perspective?
And this is for me, and this is not the role that I have as CEO, the shift. This is me as a mother. My big wish and hope is that my sons, through their journey, they're going to be okay, because I am a mother first before I am a CEO of anything. Mm-hmm. And that wish is to make sure in this diversity, equity, inclusion space that my sons are not continue to be viewed as a threat, and just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, it may be a different journey for them. And so We have to use our voices and platforms when we sit in these seats to serve on boards, and not the boards that necessarily you have to be paid for, which is not a bad thing, by the way. But boards that you can actually have a voice and make a difference while being a CEO or a president, because as you know, Representative Crawford said, if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. And so I want to be a changer in the work and how we have an impact by leveraging my position. And I can go from here and I can go to 30th and Keystone and hang out and be visible to those young ladies at the Boys and Girls Club, because I've not gotten so big in my title that I've forgotten where I've come from and that others need to see where they are. So that's my hope as a mother, as all parents, is that our next generation are not going to continue to have even more stress that impede them to be successful. And if not, then we've got the emotional support that's going to make them successful.
Well, Andrea, Neely, thank you so much for coming by today and spending some time with me. I want you to know that, man, there are a lot of little girls, little boys, and big girls and big boys watching what you're doing and the impact you're making, and so we thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is fun.
DEI Effect, it's a wrap.